Hi everyone, this is Carlos Marques. I'm Director of Technology at Mainline Information Systems. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some steps that you can take as a result of the market disruption of Broadcom buying VMware and the change from perpetual licensing to a subscription model, as well as the change from a socket-based licensing model to a core-based subscription. Those two changes are resulting in a lot of cost increases across the board, but also some opportunities which we want to discuss as it relates to how you can navigate through this transition. So the first thing that we talk to customers about is to make sure that we understand exactly what we're dealing with. We pause and assess, and sometimes this could be emotional. There can be a lot of frustration because of the cost increases that people are facing. So we want to take a look at what products that we run today. So what Broadcom has done is it's taken over 100 different products and put them into essentially two major bundles. And so there is opportunity within that conversation to look at products that you may have considered in the past but you couldn't afford. And now when you take a look at the overall total cost of ownership of deploying a vSAN or an NSX, because that's something that you've considered in the past, well, maybe there's an opportunity now with one of the bundles that Broadcom is offering to leverage that. The other reason we want to pause and assess is that this situation is changing. A lot of our customers are seeing that based on their size, that Broadcom is treating them differently. So there are certain customers where Broadcom is quoting them directly, certain customers where they're using channel partners like us, but the bundles that you're being quoted and your discounting structure all depends on the amount of cores you have in your environment. So you want to understand that and just make sure you have all those metrics. So that goes into your overall decision process as we get through this whole entire workflow here. So the next thing we want to talk about is strategic direction. So you've been delivering virtualization services and the ancillary products on top of that for many, many years. And now you want to map what you do going forward to your strategic direction so that you're spending positive money. We don't want to bring in a temporary solution to reduce the overall VMware impact if it's not aligned with what the organization needs to do to deliver services. So that may be things like moving to the cloud. It may be things like using SaaS. It may be things like modernizing your applications. So what I mean by that is looking at technologies like Kubernetes and OpenShift or serverless. So there's overall strategic direction. The other one is you might be beholden to vendors. So you might be a shop that buys packaged solutions from vendors and then is responsible for integrating those things. And those vendors will have a say in what your overall strategic direction is for infrastructure services. So you have to take that into account and make sure that whatever you do here is in line with the strategic direction. So we sit down with our customers and we try to understand that. And then could we, as a result of this disruption, accelerate any strategic direction? So let's talk a little bit about something tactically we can do around right sizing. So when you have a core-based subscription model with VMware bundles, one of the easy buttons you have, relatively easy versus the disruption of alternatives, is to look at your environment and see where areas where you can gain efficiencies by just right sizing. So that might be new hardware, that may be assessments where we're looking at the overall utilization of the hosts. Many of you know that you deploy hosts that you get based on vendor recommendations or line of business. You deploy those things and then you don't go back and look at how well they're running, if they really needed all the resources that they asked for, so on and so forth. So you have opportunities here to be able to go back and look at right sizing. You can also maybe pull in planned hardware refreshes if you can get better density, more speed, so that you can reduce your overall core footprint. So that's right sizing, and that's something you can do now. And I think a lot of customers have come to the realization that they're not going to be able to, if they do, even if they wanted to, they're not going to be able to get rid of VMware overnight. And so one of the ways to optimize things, obviously, and limit your exposure to cost increases is to reduce the amount of resources that are needed for subscriptions. So that's right sizing. So the most common thing we get asked about is alternatives. And while there are alternatives in the market, it introduces risk, meaning that any alternative technology is going to be disruptive, either because you're going to have to migrate to it and that disruption alone, or you have all sorts of other ecosystem pieces. You have a SAN, you have a backup product, you have security tools, you have process, you have skills, you have automation. All of that is going to be a factor into what alternatives you can pursue if you decide to go down this road. So the way we look at this is we take a look at the different components that integrate within VMware and say things like backups. Is your backup product talking to vCenter, right? So if vCenter goes away, what is it going to be talking to? Do you have retention on those backups that you're going to have to worry about? How is it going to work on an alternative solution? And if you've spent $5 million on a backup product where one of the major features was the VMware integration, how are you going to deal with that with the alternative, right? And some of those capabilities are still being built out for the alternative solutions now that this event has occurred. But you can go on with skills, you can go on with DR, you can go on with builds, you can go on a number of different roads here as to the kind of risk that gets introduced with alternatives. But the bottom line is that the alternatives conversation can sort of take a windy road here, and it could be a number of different things. So you could bring in a hyperconverged alternative to run VMs. You can bring in bare metal systems to run Kubernetes. You can move applications to the cloud and you can refactor them. Or you can move the business function into a SaaS provider and therefore you don't need the infrastructure anymore. So and it can be all four of those things at once. But again, we go back to the original process that we walk here, right? Understanding what we're dealing with and are there all opportunities here or do we need to consider alternatives? What is our strategic direction? Can we do some things tactically to lower our costs because we're not going to be able to get out immediately? And then do we understand as we pursue alternatives what the risks are, what they are to our existing investments and the impact? And then ultimately, do we go down multiple tracks to be able to address those alternative strategies? So we have a workshop led by an architect that walks through this in a lot more detail. And so we'd invite you to engage us in that conversation and let us see if we can help you navigate this.
So why engage Mainline? For 35 years, Mainline has been successful at helping customers navigate change. We support customers of all sizes, including some of the largest organizations in the United States. We understand that this is a complex situation for many of you. We are a Broadcom partner. We are a VMware by Broadcom partner. So as these two organizations come together, we will be well positioned to advise our customers. We also have partnerships in the alternatives you may be considering, including Nutanix and Red Hat. We have strong skills in technologies like VMware ESX, Nutanix AHV, and Red Hat OpenShift. We have a DevSecOps practice to help you assess and modernize legacy applications and run them in the cloud or on containers on platforms like Red Hat OpenShift and Red Hat OpenShift Virtualization. We have deep expertise in comprehensive offerings in areas that might be affected by this transition, including data protection, business continuity, cybersecurity, and automation. And we have the services to help assess, plan, migrate, and run your environment. Please visit our website for more information.